It's time for Beyond 2D, the only place to be every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday, every second and fourth Tuesday. How are you, my friend?
Whoa, I'm breathing.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. For those of you who have tuned into some of the other shows on some of my other shows the last week and are keeping tally, it's day 8 for me with this stuff, whatever it is here. And I'm grieving. I'm grieving. I'm grieving how I used to be before this. So if I just randomly like mute and just like wave you on, just keep going
I
with
got you. I
whatever
got you.
we're
I got
talking
you.
about.
Hand signals. Let's do some hand signals.
I love it. I love it. Listen, if you're joining us live this evening, I would love for you to say hi over in the comments. And on the replay as well, say hey and let us know that you're watching on that replay. I'm Jessica Dugas, one of your hosts of Beyond 2D, and this is my fabulous, more beautiful co-host.
Oh, the front. How about the front Dozier show right here?
No, sir, that's Beyond 2D.
I know. I did my other show this morning, so I'm like, Beyond 2D. Hello.
Hello. We are known for going down the rabbit hole on this show of some really deep, amazing, and in my opinion, much needed topics that we talk about here, because we talk about things that not necessarily other people aren't talking about, but I think we take it that step further and go beyond the surface, beyond the 2D, as the show is called. So we love to hear from you over in the comments as we go throughout. We are right in the middle of, we're week 2 of our grief series. Last week we talked about defining grief. And what are we talking about this week, Farron?
The stages. The stages of grief. Oh my. I had to revisit those myself too.
Yeah. Yeah. I did some research leading up to the show today, because we shared in the last show. I used to lead grief share at the church that I was going to several years back, and then have been through, of course, my own instances of grief since I was young. It really it started very young for me, that I had friends that had passed away. When I was 16, a friend of mine had gotten killed, and like that kind of snowballed into this sort of I guess not really fascination, but more of like a desire to become fluent, I guess, in the world of grief is how I would put it. Because it's helped me as new instances have come up, but it's also enabled me to help other people, which, you know, at the end of the day makes me feel good, because it's hard to watch someone who is kind of stuck, which is a little bit of, I think, what we'll talk about tonight with stages of grief. Miss Brittany's joining us this evening. Hey, Miss Brittany. Much needed, definitely. She says, Trista's here. Hey, Miss Trista.
Hey,
It's good to see you. So let us know in the comments what you know about the stages of grief. And so I'll start out by asking you, Farron, what do you know about the stages of grief? Because I have a couple things here that I'll pull from, but I'll start with you.
if I just go with, before I did my, my own work, it was I would say it's just the experiences we go through during those losses, whether it's a loved one, whether it's an animal, whether it's your car, like there's feeling and emotions that come with this sense of loss. And even if it's a best friend that you don't talk to no more, like it's an emotion. It's a it's a sense of some emotions that come over you, that it's like a loss. We describe it as a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there were originally 5 stages of grief that were penned by a psychologist. I'm going to pull them up on the screen here and tell you a little bit about it because this is the part that I was not aware of. I knew that there was originally 5 stages,
Mhm.
and I didn't really know the origins of it, but apparently this model was introduced in a 1969 book called On Death and Dying. It was by a Swiss American psychiatrist named Dr. Elizabeth Kubler Ross. And it's a concept that is linear in nature, though I've read some things that say that they did not intend for it to be linear. So, a lot of times when
Mm.
these 5 stages are taught, they're taught in the way of first you'll experience denial,
Right,
then
right.
anger, then, and go along in that way. But apparently, even though a lot of people, including myself, have not really ever aligned with that linear nature, that
Mhm.
was not what it was intended. But it's sort of like when people aren't around to tell their side of the story.
Exactly, that part.
Digress a little
That
bit.
part.
But so those were the initial 5 stages. Now there are, many groups, including BetterHelp and, Medical News Today and some other groups like that that go by a 7 stage of grief model, which is shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and then acceptance. So,
Mm.
so that's interesting. It adds a little bit more. It also comes off as being linear. However, I think we'll get in and see, and I'll start by asking you and also our audience, if you have been through a grief experience, have you felt it being linear or in some sort of order?
I would say definitely no order. Just when I self-examine myself, in my most recent with my dad, uh, I've been over all those stages. Yeah, so I wouldn't definitely say it's not linear. Uh, And I didn't know about shock
Mm,
and testing. Like I didn't
yeah.
dive that further past the 5 stages.
Those were new to me as well in the research that I did because, like I said, I had heard the 5 stages before and I had heard about it being like this sort of step by step thing. And when I didn't feel that it was linear for me, I just kind of threw it out. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, this is not stages of grief are not for me. This is not what I'm experiencing. And out the door it went because it was difficult for me at that time when I first learned about it to compartmentalize and go, well, maybe it could just be a different order for me, or
Mhm.
maybe it's not like an arrival sort of thing, period. Maybe it's not like you have denial and then you get over it, now moving on to something else. Perhaps
Yeah,
you
no.
can just deal with it when it comes up and it may come back.
But see, I like how you said that because when you when they design these conversations for us as human beings, it's across the board. Like these are human being experiences. And as you mentioned, we all experience them different times, different ways, different we language them differently. But like you said, who's putting this initial document, these topics together? I think it's they look at it from the psychological perspective, which is these are the human conditions and these are the human experiences. And so at some point you're gonna fall in between one of these because of the condition of it, what it is to be a human. So that's kind of what I get. And after that, then it's like how you say, you just gotta pay attention where you are, if it's
Right.
if it's in line of any of those at any given time. And I can tell you now that you added shock, right? That day I got that voicemail because I missed her call, my dad's caregiver's call, and I called her. I listened to what she was saying on the voicemail, and then I called her. When I hung up with her, was the shock. I could say I was definitely shocked because it was unexpected. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I I didn't know that there was a shock.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at that. Brittany said it was never linear for her. It's been kind of all over the place. And I think that that's a big majority of people's experience as well, as it kind of like either comes and goes or it's in different places.
I
Talk to
can't.
me about which of these you feel like you've kind of hit on and maybe ones you're still working on.
Oh, You know, the denial. I was looking at when I was looking at the denial one for me. I for so long I thought I just made it mean that my dad was on vacation and he's gonna call me when he gets back, because we had this relationship, especially before we did our healing process, that we would go weeks without talking. You know, we would go a month without actually talking to one another. And so when he was gone, that was my denial. Like, nah, he's on vacation. Like, nah, he's gonna call me. Let me call him. And I really, I, I still do. I still touch on that today, because now in my wherever I'm at in this conversation, I look like him with my beard, right? And so I when I talk, a lot of my words and my tone, I hear his voice in it. And so that takes me back to that denial. That takes me back to a lot of the different stages. But the denial stuck out for sure, because it was like, oh, he's gonna call me. He's out of town. Yeah, he's out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to this definition of we'll kind of go through one by one here, but listen to this shock definition of what that stage is about, because I think I think both you and I like to look at things of like, how is this serving us? Like, how what can we find in this that can actually help us?
Yeah.
So this says, and this is from medicalnewstoday.com. The shock stage may involve numbed disbelief in response to news of a loss. It may serve as an emotional buffer to prevent someone from feeling overwhelmed.
Mm. I'm
Because we
telling
know there's a lot of things that come along with the announcement that someone has passed.
you.
Even if we're not talking about just death in this moment, there's a lot that can come with any kind of news.
Yeah. Hmm.
So if subconsciously we choose to disbelieve, that is a protection for us from feeling too overwhelmed and kind of spiraling.
I now see, I can relate to that, because I definitely use that, because I was in school when my dad passed, and like that next week or that weekend, I had to clean his apartment out. Like I can't remember how soon that was, but yeah, I definitely used the shock to suppress it so I could finish school. I put it to you that way. So I didn't even actually spiral out of anything, because I had to focus on graduating my class. And I still had, it was May, June, July, August. I still had 4 months left. So I would definitely equate that to shock of how I made it out of class and still got a 90 and above in all of my attendance and curriculum, right? And I didn't. I think I left early one day of school, so I didn't even take a break. They tried to give me like 2 weeks off or something. I was like, no, like I got to do this. So yeah, wow, shock for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it ties into what I was talking about last week too, and when I was describing what happened when my brother died, and how at the moment, because I walked in, he took his last breath, I kind of fell into the chair, and my first thought was not on him, it was on me, and what am I
Mm-hmm.
doing with my life? And so I feel like, because like subconsciously, like it's talking about it being a protection,
Mm-hmm.
I had gone into me, because then I don't have to focus on the fact that my 24-year-old other old brother just died right in front of me,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because there was a lot to unpack with that.
yeah. I could see shock probably being before the denial for sure.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah. And
if now if you want to go linear,
yeah.
right now if you want to go linear, I could see the shock kind of being that first piece though.
Yeah. I can see it being in the first piece, but I'm also not convinced that it doesn't come back around. Same thing with, I mean, I suppose it could be denial as well. And so we'll talk about that, and then I'll kind of say what I want to say about that, because I think those two are so close for me, shock and denial. Like I feel like shock is like that initial, and denial is a continuation of shock,
Mm.
almost, if that
I
makes
could see,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
Denial, they say, may entail refuting the reality of the loss or any associated feelings. Once an individual accepts reality, they can move forward through the healing process. Shock and denial help people manage the immediate aftermath of a loss.
So my definition of denial actually included shock inside the denial definition that I used.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that
they,
makes
they could
sense.
be they could be close together.
Yeah.
But I would rely definitely more on the initial shock phase is how I made it through school. There was no denial. The denial was coming in when he's on vacation, and which was kind of shortly after. But yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's what it's saying though. It may entail refuting the reality. So that continual like choice to be like whether subconscious or conscious to go, nah, that's not what's going on. It's like all the times that I whether shock or denial, and this is what I was gonna share a minute ago, that I talked to my grandmother on the phone so often that when she died, I was still picking up the phone. Like I would literally
mm.
be like cooking. I would call her for the dumbest shit wrong. Like I I
Just
think
to hear
she
her voice.
just to hear her voice, and she always had like the best advice ever, you know. She would always just she would always have the answer. She just would like good, bad, or indifferent. It just was what it was. And so like I would be making dinner and be like, what do I put in that? And I would pick up the phone and be halfway dialing the number before I even realized what I was doing.
Oh wow.
So I think that that denial, like there's even times when that will pop up now when I don't know, when I moved back here to Connecticut and I went and drove past their old house, um, which you want to hear something wild about that?
Mhm.
She sold the house before they passed away because she went to go live in assisted living where my grandfather was staying in the other side of the nursing home where he was. And they sold it to a family with the last name Dugas. Now, yeah,
Whoa.
we don't know who they are, but we didn't know that until afterward, which is a wild kind of, it's a whole story in
Whoa.
itself. But anyway, I drove by when we moved back here to Connecticut and I sort of like, I don't know. I have fully expected to like watch my grandmother walk out the door.
Mhm.
And then the other half of me was like, y'all better hope that house isn't haunted now because that yard looks horrendous. That yard looks horrendous and she's gonna come. Listen, I don't want that house now. Like I kept thinking one day I want to buy that house, not anymore because y'all made it a mess and my grandmother's haunting it. Period. End of story. You know. So but there's still those moments when I'm like, I don't know, like it's harder being back home now
Yeah. Oh
to
yeah,
not
I bet.
slip into like thinking she's there,
'Cause
yet
all
I'm
your
like,
memories are right there.
yeah, and I'm a mile and a half from where she's buried,
Yeah, your memories are there.
you know?
I can tell
So it's
you that denial piece for my grandmother. I want to say like you were talking about in our lives, like those main losses. I don't remember any main losses until my grandmother's, and I was 25, and it took me 10 years to, and I'm going to say it this way because I understand the denial phase. It took me 10 years to get out of the denial phase because the acceptance came from after the denial because I said, let me call my grandmother. And I went to grab my phone. And then my mind said, she's not here anymore. And it was like I was at peace. And I haven't had that kind of grief toward her since. It was like the denial phase went away and then it was right to the acceptance. And I wasn't even doing this kind of work that I was serving, I was deployed, walking under the stars, checking vehicles. So to recall the experience of the phases, I think that's good. If you really pay attention and you want to, I think if you want to be free from your grief, pay attention to the different stages. And I believe that could lead you to the acceptance at some phase of it. That's what
right,
comes to me with that.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about anger because that's a fun one? Let's talk.
No,
Let's unpack anger, and then we'll go to break.
no. Tune in next. Tune
During
in
this
next month.
stage, an individual may direct their anger toward the person who died, doctors, family members, or even religious entities.
Mm,
This replaces the numbness of shock and denial, and it's important to address the anger.
mm.
Let's talk about who you've been angry at, Farron. Who have you been angry at in your grief?
I wasn't mad with God.
Mm,
I was mad with God.
yeah.
I question him. I question him so much. And it wasn't that I didn't understand death, but it was like, why? And why like that? And why, like, why didn't you give me a chance to talk to him one more time?
Yeah.
Why, when my grandson is about to be born, he's going to miss out on this part of the life? Like, yeah, so I questioned God. And like you kind of said for your brother, and then I took it to myself. Like, am I going to be mad at myself, or am I going to go through these stages to figure out how I'm feeling? Because I knew it wasn't going to be regret. I knew there was no regret or no resentment, but I knew there was still something there. And so I had it out with God.
Yeah.
probably about probably about 2 years.
Yeah.
Probably about 2 years I had it out with God, because I was just like, I don't understand, man.
Mm, yeah. I think the anger part of things um really speaks a lot to none of us truly knowing what happens after the fact.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
we have our beliefs, we have our faith, we have, there's all of those things, but you don't you still never been there before, like, to prove that to be true, you
No.
know. So I think some of that ties into it, and for me a lot of my anger was around that empty chair. um I My brother had lived with us for some time in Florida before I had gotten divorced, and he had witnessed some things. He had witnessed some things that I wish that he hadn't had to witness.
Mm,
Um, and when I met my husband now, like, I had such a desire for him to see me treated well
mm,
and not what he had witnessed when he lived with me for a time.
mm,
And see my kids treated well, and a lot of that. And so he died in January, and then Phil and I had gotten married in December. So, like,
mhm,
he didn't get to see that. Now my grandmother was able to come down for our wedding, but, like, it had been within that year. My grandfather and my brother passed that same week, so it was like
mm.
that was a couple of empty chairs at, like, the most important. This was like one of the most important days of my life, getting married, because of what I had overcome, because of what I had been through
Mhm,
previously. And so a lot of my anger was like that was my God anger, is like, you let them witness like some horrifying stuff, and you're not gonna let them see the good stuff? Like,
yeah.
really? And so there, there's a lot, and I think some, for the most part, like, there's other anger things. I'm choosing to be a little bit careful about this topic on the show tonight, but I will say that there's other anger things that have come up regarding regarding other people that were involved, regarding doctors, regarding the medical system. That could be a whole show in
Right.
itself.
Oh yeah, right.
Um, because that entire thing that happened shaped a lot of my stuff, my things that have happened since then with my health and all of that.
Hmm.
And so it's it's tough. It's tough where anger is concerned, and it's one of the main reasons why I know that it's not a linear stage sort of model for me,
Yeah.
because it's a moment to moment choice to go, is that where I'm going to spend my energy today, is in anger, or are we going to do something about it?
I don't know now because I remember, after he passed, and then the shock of me going to the apartment and doing all this. I thought it was like the movies where, call me when you take him to the corner. So they were like, no, you need to come. You're the next of kin. You need to call them, and you got to make those arrangements. I was like, what? Like, no. They're like, no, you got to get down here. I'm talking to the police. And so the the next phase of that, in that anger, was when I got his ashes, and I got his autopsy report, and I looked at what the doctors had put on there of his health condition, and then I got angry with my dad. I was like, "Why didn't you ever say that you was dealing with kidney disease? Like,
Mm,
you like, there's some ailments on here that we didn't talk about.
yeah.
Like, you didn't share." And so I was like, "Wait a minute, man. Like, were you trying to protect me from something?" But I took a little bit of anger out on my dad because I'm like, there's some could, and because I know that sickle cell trait could be directly connected to kidney disease. I'm an advocate for that. He was a trait carrier, so now I'm thinking like his health and his gene. Like, I was like, man, why didn't you say something?
Mm, mm.
Why did you say something?
I will say though, at the same time with that, um, because this is what I do. I'm giving you the other side of the coin here, real quick. Um, because I always used to feel similarly. Like, I'd hear about somebody dying and like you didn't know that they had something, or you didn't know that they were going through something. And I'm like, why the hell would you keep that a secret? That doesn't make any kind of sense to me.
Yeah.
However, um, I watched, and this ties beautifully into this stage. I watched in the period of time when my brother was in ICU, uh, all kinds of people coming out of the woodwork. Like, where you been? Like, where you been on the good days?
Mm.
Why are you popping up now?
Mm.
And so witnessing that made me have quite a bit of a change of heart when it comes to being upset or angry about someone for not sharing what they're dealing with,
Mm.
because sometimes you have people that want to get involved for the wrong reason, or
Mm.
that want to get involved because we as humans are very attracted to drama.
Mhm.
As much as we might go, I don't like drama, bull. Bull. um but it's hard to watch that. And for me, I have made a decision that if I just FYI for everybody that knows me out there, you're learning something new tonight. If I was ever diagnosed with something hardcore, like FYI, you probably not going to make it through a year, none of you will know.
Wow.
None of you will know, because I don't want people coming around that haven't been there to celebrate with me the good things.
Okay, so let me peel that off before the break.
Yeah.
Especially if it's family. What I've learned about love, and if you break it out to like the Greek terms of love, right? English I love you, and it's 65 degrees outside. It's the same. I love my car like I love my shoes. I love you too. Like that's all the same in English, right? However, in the Greek language, they have different words for love. And what I learned about storge, which is family love, right? When I did my research on that, what I found is that family love comes with a sense of obligation.
Mm.
And that's why, and also the family love is there for the tough times. So we question, well, why did you come around? Why do we come together at the funeral? Right? Why does all the family come out at the funeral? Well, guess what? There's a little bit of that human condition of family love. That's a sense of obligation, and it's also that other sense of like we're here for the tough times, right?
Yeah.
And so I found my peace in that, so that I could be okay with when people only pop up when there's a funeral, right?
Yeah.
They have that extra friendship love with that family love. It takes extra effort to experience a family member as a friend, right? So when I got that in my heart and got peace with that, then I understand why people come out of the woodworks when there's a funeral, because guess what? That's what your family is for.
Right. And I'm saying like where I'm at, like I have peace that that's what will happen. That's just it like it's what it is, like you said. However, that's what I choose to not be a part of. I want I'm looking for that extra effort at this point in my life because that's what I give. I'm not saying that I'm going to get it from everybody. I'm not saying I'm going to cut you off if I don't get it. However, that's not what I'm seeking, if that makes sense.
Oh, I got you on that one. I'm going to let you slide right now, though.
Yeah. It's not what I'm seeking. It's not what I'm looking for.
Because you said the effort. And it's not what you give, right? But also in that effort is it who you be in that
Absolutely.
Effort too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not always, but it is who I be now. It wasn't always. And I've been very forthright about that. Yeah. But it's in that knowing where I was, knowing where I've come from, and also experiencing what I've experienced and watching what I've witnessed for me to be able to go that, because that's where the breakthrough happens, is going, that is not who I'm going to be. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And choosing to change it, we need to take a break.
Let's get it.
We need to take a break. We're gonna take a break.
We
Let me know how y'all doing okay out there. Y'all are awfully quiet.
They going through them stages like, where am I right now?
Nobody knows. We're gonna be right back after this. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh, man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn, are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Welcome back to Beyond 2D. It is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, and we are on part 2 of our grief series. Tonight we're talking about the stages of grief. And so far we're kind of going along the 7 stages of grief model rather than the 5 stages because I think it breaks it down a little bit more. We talked about shock, denial, and we finished off last segment with anger. Y'all okay out there? You
They gotta
okay?
be. We can if we can still smile through this tough conversation. I hope you can too.
I
I
hope
hope
so.
you
I
can
hope so.
too.
That's why we're here together. Next one on the list, we got to talk about bargaining.
Don't
Bargaining.
know about that. I don't think I experienced that one.
Let me break it down for you here. Medical News Today says bargaining involves thoughts such as, "I will do anything if you take away the pain." This stage may come at any point with the grieving process, and it is frequently accompanied by guilt.
Yeah. I don't think I've experienced bargaining. Unless it correlates with my grandson being born. No, I still don't think. Because no, I don't think I've experienced bargaining. Attempting to negotiate or make deals to reverse the loss.
I have been in bargaining when it's not having to do with a death. I have been in bargaining regarding my health before. We talked last week about different ways that we can experience grief outside of the death experience, right?
Got you. Appreciate that.
I have bargained. I have oh my gosh.
Well, in that case, yeah.
Yeah, see? I have bargained when it comes to that. I remember bargaining. See, I feel like God laughs every time I try to bargain because for me, I think one of the reasons I stay out of that stage more now is because of what you were talking about before the break about who are you being. And I had to ask myself, how much am I bargaining but taking action to, am I fulfilling my side of that bargain?
Right.
That I'm wanting to do. Brittany said, yeah, bargaining when not dealing with death. Yeah.
Yeah. So in other stages, especially you said around health, yeah, I bargain my health. Probably still right now.
Yeah.
I think I bargained
Please,
my health.
I took it for granted when my body was working correctly. I will do anything.
For real.
But that said, I do know of at least one person who has done the bargaining when it comes to a death situation. And I feel like it's absolutely correct and that there's guilt tied to that.
For sure. Yeah.
Because I know that they may feel not responsible for the death, but responsible for things that had happened in their life. And not getting to really atone for those things.
Reconcile them, those relationships. I believe that's all connected in there. I should have called more.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And so with this person, I know that it's sad, but they're kind of stuck, I feel like, in that spot because they're just waiting to die at this point. That's their
experience,
I think.
of themselves.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I mean, the body, we are chemicals. So guilt can make you sick.
It'll eat you up.
Yeah, it'll eat you up.
Eat you up.
Yeah. But you can work your way out of guilt, though. For those that are listening, you can work your way out of that guilt.
You can.
And it's possible. It's possible. There's ways. Go find some help. Go talk to somebody. But you can You can't get past that guilt for sure. It takes a
And I
little
think
effort.
when we get really into deep into the guilt and everything, it can lead to something else, which is the next stage, which is depression. Um, it says at this
I know I
stage,
was there.
yeah, a person may experience feelings of emptiness and intense sadness. They may also withdraw from daily activities and things they once enjoyed. While this stage is difficult, Medical News Today claims that it is necessary step towards healing. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, big time.
You think it's necessary, really? Like it's
Yes, it's necessary. Yes.
interesting.
It goes in line with that acceptance. Like
Mm,
depression is for me is also from the past. So connected to that bargaining and regrets and resentment can lead you from the past, and then that's that forgiveness. That's that okay, you got to go down that trail to see where is it coming from. And if you're willing to look and see where it's coming from, guess what? When you go look and see where it's coming from, you can actually be free from it because you're willing to tell the truth to yourself. And if you, depending on what education you utilize, like don't use your own mind. Go find there's grievance courses out there. There's all kind of personal development course, whatever your religion belief. I'm sure that there's conversations in there that help deal with those emotions. And I didn't know that I was in depression until I realized 2.5 years into it that I killed off relationships and friendships
mm,
from my behavior. And it was like, oh, that one day out of that depression was like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? And it was like, oh shoot, I've been in a very dark space, and
right.
it was at least 2.5 years before I noticed for myself. And most
Yeah.
people around me, you know, especially when you lose a parent or a loved someone close in your family, most people expect that behavior anyway. Like, well, you have the right to have depression because your dad died. So nobody's going to question that experience. And
Right.
the people around me allowed me to go through that. But I didn't
Mm,
know at the same time. For me, I was caught in my destroying relationships. Just my attitude,
yeah.
being the coldness.
I think for me, my perspective with depression is a little bit different. I was diagnosed with clinical depression when I was very young. I was probably 12,
Mhm.
maybe 13, probably closer to 12. And so I remember with the grief experiences, as it describes sort of waves of intense sadness, but I don't remember and I feel pretty strongly and pretty strongly about this that I don't think that I was in a depression as a result of grief.
Mm.
So for me, I'm not sure that this particular stage holds true to me where grief is concerned, but I do definitely resonate with waves of intense sadness that will
Mhm.
wash over. We talked about before the show earlier today, my husband texted me that he had a gentleman in his that had come in his office to buy a car that used to work with my grandfather at EB. There's not a lot of them left. That's a different generation, you know. So it's very rare to encounter people that knew my grandparents really well, and I had that in wave of intense grief, sadness, also like happiness that there was someone that could say to my husband, because my husband never had the chance to like really
Mhm.
know my grandfather for who he was because he had had a stroke many years before he died. So there was a lot of people that met him post stroke that didn't
Mm.
know my grandfather for who he was because he
Mhm.
couldn't walk, talk, nothing
Mhm.
afterwards. So it was a beautiful thing. Like it was also happiness because it was like somebody else that knew him was able to tell my husband, man, that was a great man.
Mhm.
Like I have such good memories of him. And so I experienced that just this morning. So
Yeah.
going back to it's not linear for me either, because I've been through a lot of the other things, but I felt that wave just earlier today. So again, for me, I've been depressed, but I think the grief experience for me is more waves of sadness than I would resonate with it being a depression. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm
I
at with
definitely
that.
still catch the wave of it for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
still I don't know if that part ever goes away.
I don't think
But
so either.
I'm still, this will be year 5 coming up right now. And if I catch the wrong Sade song or catch the
Mm,
wrong one of them funk songs,
yeah.
uh catch the wave, my buddy, catch the
Yeah.
wave.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's not anything from the past except for the great memories. Like you said, it's the great
Yeah.
memories and that humanness
Mm,
that that they're not there right. They're not can't call them and say, "Hey, what's happening there? How you doing?"
mm.
That
The
part.
physicality of it, yeah,
Yeah,
is really is tough. It's
yeah,
tough. Um, and I'll circle back to this when we get to the end one too, because I think it's going to end up circling back to a lot of them. But I want to move on to the next one so we don't run out of time.
yeah,
The next one, stage of grief, is called testing, and this says testing is the process of trying to find solutions that offer a means of dealing with loss. Someone may drift in and out of other grieving stages during this time.
yeah. I definitely agree with testing.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the process. Like I said, you want to be aware of where you're at so
Mm,
that you can understand when it comes up again, where what those feelings and emotions are coming up, where are they coming from?
right.
Like, we're smart people. Our brain is powerful. Our
Mm,
brain is strong. So versus denying it, suppressing it, I learned you have to be with those emotions, be with them, and when you allow yourself to be with them, then you can test what works. I might need to go play some music in this
mm,
moment of that grief, in this moment of depression or sadness. I don't have to go cry. Maybe I just go play
mm,
some music, and that's enough to just be with those emotions at that time. So yeah, I
right.
think that's a necessity.
I would even argue that once we've experienced grief, we're kind of always testing. Because like we talked about, that wave can wash over at any moment. They're going like, oh, something remind me of them or whatever. So I always ask myself, like, okay, what's going to work right now? What's
Mhm.
going to work right in this minute? Do I need to listen to a song? Do I need to look at some pictures? Do I need to tell stories to my kids? What do I need to do
Mhm.
in this moment to be okay with dealing with the loss?
And
And so
if you go find some grievance courses that are out there, you can develop the strength and the principles so that you can be aware and recognize them. I believe a lot of people they live in denial,
yeah,
and owning that experience, owning that body sensation, be learning how to be with it. The more you practice that, the more freedom you get to that acceptance piece.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think this comes after depression. In the if we're looking at it linearly,
Mm-hmm.
um, it comes after depression in my mind because it's not to say when me saying that I don't feel like connected to depression, that doesn't mean that I haven't witnessed other people go there. And I feel like for me, if you're in that depression state, that's when you really like, if you haven't gotten help up till that point, like
Yeah.
it's time to seek some help at that point. And you kind of, I feel like sometimes there's got to be a heavy like shove into testing because
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're still in depression, but I, I there's a lot of things about I feel like almost testing I think we're gonna get into more of that on the next episode
Yeah.
with testing as we start talking about support. So
Yeah.
I have 8 million things in my brain right now, which we'll save for next week. We'll save
Testing
for
is a
next
tool.
episode.
It's a tool for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a tool.
For
Absolutely.
sure.
The final stage here is acceptance. This is the final stage of the grieving process. Acceptance does not mean people feel, oh, this is it for me. Acceptance does not mean people feel okay about a loss. I cannot bell that. I'm going to break my bell if I don't move it away from me. Listen, because this is why I've heard so many people be like, I'm not handling this well. I'm so sad. I'm so like, you can be sad. Like,
Mhm.
just because you get to the point of where you go, I understand this is what happens. I've realized that this is a new reality. It doesn't mean that you're going to be sad. And
Mhm.
that's another 8 million reasons why the linear thing doesn't work for just
Watch the movie Inside Out. It's a perfect
yeah.
example of sadness and how you utilize that to your strength.
Yeah.
It's a
So
condition that we have.
acceptance, rather, it means they realize their new the loss is their new reality. They understand that life will not continue as it did before, that while life will not continue as it did before, it will go on. This stage may involve reorganizing roles and forming new relationships.
Totally. But what I want to point out to that acceptance piece is it doesn't mean that you're forgetting about that loved one either.
Absolutely.
I've met people that hold on to that because now they make themselves wrong because I'm not sad today about the loss of my dad. Like,
Mhm.
no, like, so I learned that when I'm not in any of these stages, I got to get back to Farron's life. Like, it's my
Yeah.
turn. Like, so I had to go through the education, like I said, the learning of the principles, taking those grievance courses. So when I'm not feeling in any of these, and maybe I'm in the stage of acceptance, then guess what? I can go about my life. And yes, I might think about my dad, but I don't have the grief or the anything because I'm in the acceptance phase and I've got things that I want to accomplish in life. And I believe that's why some people, when that loss is, and I almost did it. I almost did it when I in the shock phase and denial phase, I was like, I'm done. I'm done. He's gone, I'm gone. And I quit. I'm just gonna go and crawl in the hole in the cave and go live in the cave. But then all the work that I had done up until that point was like, oh no, you can't. You have a purpose. You've been saying that God gave you a purpose in life, and now you're gonna talk like that. And so working through those stages, we're getting to acceptance in the space where, you know what, I'm okay today. So let me go do what I need to do. Let me go take care of some business. Let me go. I'm free. Like, I'm not. There's no weight right now. Like, I think people make themselves wrong for feeling that level of acceptance.
Right.
Is
Right.
my point.
Yeah. And I think, look, I can't hammer home enough when we first shared that this is what we're going to be talking about this week. And I was like, well, I don't, I really do struggle with how the stages of grief are presented in such a linear manner still, even after experts have said it's really not linear, because I think I think we can put ourselves back if we try to think of it in linear things, okay, and say we feel okay, we've worked through the anger, we've worked through that intense sadness, and then one day somebody texts you and said something and it brings up something else. Now we're shocked again
Mhm.
because it will keep going around if you don't just allow it to happen the way it happened. We've got to stop feeling guilty for where we are in the grieving process, and we've also got to stop putting that on other people
Yeah.
and where they're at, because
Right.
I will sit here all day and tell you I was not in a depression where it comes to grief. I felt waves of sadness, but I was not in depression. That does not mean Farron isn't valid in saying I experienced depression,
Right.
or my friends or my mom or any of these other people that I know that are dealing with grief right now. I want everybody that's watching this whole series to feel that you are valid where you are in grief. And please, 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 if you feel like you cannot deal with it, that you are drowning in it, that it's not like you don't have anybody, please reach out for help. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all. The biggest thing I can say about this is because I have witnessed people completely stuck. In fact, one of those people is gone now
Yeah.
because you can literally watch when someone lets it eat away at them.
Yeah. What is
And
the
it's
hermit?
hard.
My friends say you're gonna become a hermit or something. What is
Mm.
the person that just goes? Like I said, I was
Mhm.
ready, and I truly believe that if I would have stepped away and I just had the thought coming into this conversation, like I need to maybe I should just take a year off. Like maybe I should just walk away from everything and just take a break for a while.
Absolutely not. You can't do me like that, Farron.
But even in this, I was like, because you have friends that say, man, you should take some time off. You should take some time off. Go, And I was like, nah. At that point, I was like, nah, I'm good. But sometimes I do think like maybe I should just take a year, just shut down and just take a step back and not take on so much responsibility and go through these phases. But I'm like, nah, I've studied. I know how to be used by principles. I believe in God. I trust God now. So no, I'm gonna go through these stages as I'm living my life. And so I don't have to take a year off. I don't have to step
Yes.
away because I'm just
You
gonna
can go
be
through
with
those
it. Yes,
stages
go
and
through the
live your life.
stages. Yes, go through the stages. So that's what I chose to do.
Yeah.
Or who to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. In 2 weeks' time, let's see, let me get my dates correctly. March 12th, we're moving on to part 3 of this grief conversation. We're going to be talking about support, which I love.
I don't know what to say about that subject.
You don't know what to say about? Oh, come on now.
I don't know.
We're providing some support here.
Oh, is that what we're doing? Maybe because
That's what we're trying to do.
Maybe because I'm on the court. I'm not on the bench or in the stands. Maybe because I've been on the court about this conversation. I don't recognize it as support. So
yeah,
there's my teammate right there saying I'm gonna take the shot.
That's it. That's it. I love it. But we're gonna dive into support, and I love this because I think it's gonna tie in a lot to that testing phase that we've talked about, testing stage that we talked about tonight, and also can really help you. I think I'd like to talk about maybe some of the things that's worked for each of us to help work through some of these different stages as they wash over us like waves. And for my fellow creatives out there, I think you're going to love the next episode because I have some good things to share about some of the things that I've done to help me. And I think one of the big things I keep going back to what you just said a couple minutes ago, and it's driving me nuts in my brain. Talking about how people told you that you should take some time off, et cetera, et cetera. I don't like that at all. And there are many reasons why. I don't like that they said that to you. For any of you out there that are watching that ever said that to my friend Farron, we're gonna have a go around next week. Because what I also want to talk about in what's worked for us, I want to talk about next week how to be a good support when someone is going through whatever part of grief, because I think that that's something that is not really taught a whole lot. We behave, we be what we want to receive and not necessarily what the other person needs.
Right. Ooh.
And we yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you made me think because I didn't. You know how people say that? Oh, let me know if you need anything. Ooh, we go. Okay, now I'm ready for support. Okay, I'm good.
We're good, right? We're good.
I'm good. Now
next week's gonna be good, boys and girls.
Yes, because oh my goodness,
we're getting fired up now. It's happening.
Human beings can be so sincere with our words and don't even mean any of it.
Yep.
Support
coming up now. See, I knew we would. Yeah,
it was in there.
Tuesday, March 12th, 6 p.m. Eastern time. If you need any resources at all, as I shared, Farron is a counselor of sorts, does a lot of different types of counseling. And then I have been over the Grief Share program before. So if you need any resources at all, please email Jessica at thebreakthroughshow.com. Jessica at thebreakthroughshow.com. I will not take it on, but I will be able to send you some resources to help you out, because I don't want anybody to, if you feel like you are drowning in any of these stages, please reach out. Call your doctor, call a friend, call your mom, call
That's
some.
my IG right there at Farron
There you go.
Dozier. So
There
if
it
you
is.
need to message me, I'm open to, like you said, share with you, listen to you, and hopefully can point you in the right direction of who you get to be, so you can work through those stages.
I love it.
For
I love
sure.
it. Well, I will see you in a couple of weeks, my friend, and I appreciate you all being there. Let us know. Let us know how you liked this episode, how you're enjoying this series, and how, if it's helping you at all. We would love to hear from you on that as well. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. That's it.
That's it.
Don't grieve too hard. It's only 2 weeks. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Peace.